He left with a uniform, a wedding ring, and a promise. No guarantees, just the hope that when he came back, everything he loved would still be standing. But when he stepped off that bus onto familiar soil, the town looked smaller, quieter, colder. You know that feeling when something's wrong, but you can't immediately place what it is? That's what hit him first, before he even knew what was missing. His house? Gone. His land? Repossessed. And the worst part? It was all legal. You're probably wondering how this could happen to someone who sacrificed everything. Don't worry. I'll show you exactly how the system failed him. But first, let me tell you what he lost. Before the war, he had 10 acres, 2 kids, and a wife who made coffee just the way he liked it. Burnt and black. Their house wasn't much. A 2-bedroom ranch with plumbing that groaned and windows that leaked during heavy rain. But you know what made it special? His hands had built every repair, planted every tree, fixed every broken thing. Have you ever loved something so deeply that it becomes part of your identity? That's what those 10 acres were to him. The land was his father's, before him. Not perfect farmland by any stretch, too rocky in parts, prone to flooding in others, but it was his. And when you own something passed down through generations, you don't just possess it. You inherit the responsibility to preserve it. He signed up because he believed in duty, not politics, not medals, just duty, the kind you might understand if you've ever put something larger than yourself ahead of your own interests. And every letter he wrote from overseas ended the same way. Tell the boys I'll be home before harvest. What he didn't know, what you're about to discover, is that forces were already in motion that would make that promise impossible to keep. Months passed, then years. The letters slowed. The world moved on without him. You've seen how quickly society forgets, haven't you? How yesterday's headline becomes tomorrow's forgotten story? And back home, the bills stacked up. The bank called. No one answered. You might be thinking his wife abandoned their responsibilities. You'd be wrong, and I'll tell you exactly what happened to her soon. She tried to keep things afloat. She really did. Working double shifts at the hospital, cutting every corner possible, even selling her wedding china just to make the mortgage one more month. But love doesn't pay mortgages, and mercy doesn't come with interest-free extensions. Have you ever tried to hold back a flood with just your bare hands? That's what she was doing, fighting a battle almost as impossible as the one he was fighting overseas. The first notice came 6 months after he deployed, printed in cold black ink on pink paper. It seemed almost apologetic in its formality. More followed, each one less patient than the last. You're probably asking yourself, aren't there protections for military families? Weren't there safety nets designed specifically for this situation? The answer might make you more angry than you expect. Here's what you need to understand. On paper, the protections existed. The service members' Civil Relief Act should have paused foreclosure proceedings. Military hardship programs should have restructured the debt. Government agencies should have stepped in. You know what stands between a law and its enforcement? People, paperwork, process. Forms were sent to an overseas address where mail delivery was sporadic at best. Deadlines passed while he was in combat zones without internet access. Notifications went unanswered because, well, how do you answer mail when you're dodging bullets? You might be thinking, someone should have helped his family navigate this. Someone should have caught these errors, and you'd be right. But here's the heartbreaking truth I promised to reveal. The system isn't designed for exceptions. It's designed for efficiency. And when efficiency collides with humanity, guess which one usually wins? What do you think happens when you fall through the cracks of a system that was supposed to protect you? When he finally returned, sunburned and 20 pounds lighter, the house was rubble and overgrown weeds. The developer had wasted no time after the auction, bulldozed everything, except for a single dogwood tree his grandfather had planted decades ago. Can you imagine standing where your home should be and finding nothing? Can you feel the disorientation? The sudden vertigo of having your entire existence erased? His name, stripped from the deed. His possessions, most were auctioned off for pennies on the dollar, including his father's watch, his grandfather's tools, and the quilt his mother had made when his first son was born. Things you can't replace with insurance money. His kids, living with their aunt 2 counties over, enrolled in a new school, making new friends, slowly forgetting the sound of his voice. And what about his wife? The detail I've been holding back? She wasn't gone because she'd abandoned him. She was gone because the stress had broken her. After the foreclosure, after losing their home, after trying to hold everything together alone, she'd suffered a breakdown severe enough to require hospitalization. You're feeling it now, aren't you? That hollow ache when injustice has no clear villain, just a cascade of failures, each one small enough to excuse, but catastrophic in combination. Turns out, a man can risk his life for his country and still lose everything he was trying to save. What would you do if everything you fought for vanished while you were fighting? He called the county, the bank, the courthouse. He sat in waiting rooms and stood in line and held for customer service representatives. Some were sympathetic. Most were indifferent. All were bound by policies and procedures that allowed no space for compassion. You know the phrase, too little, too late? This is where it becomes painfully real. They all said the same thing. It was all legal. No fraud. No mistakes. Just time, debt, and silence. Remember when I mentioned there were protections that should have saved his home? Here's where the loop closes. Those protections required action. Forms that should have been filed. Applications that should have been processed. Deadlines that should have been extended. But you've dealt with bureaucracy before, haven't you? You know how easily things fall through cracks. How one missed signature can invalidate weeks of effort. How systems designed to help can become labyrinths, impossible to navigate. There were no villains, no corrupt officials, no predatory lenders twirling mustaches, just 1,000 small abandonments that added up to ruin. A system designed to function, not to care. What's worse, losing everything to malice, or losing everything to indifference. He spent 3 nights in his truck, parked where the front porch used to be, a ghost haunting the ruins of his own life. The neighbors who remembered him brought food. The ones who didn't called the police about a suspicious vehicle. You can probably picture him there, can't you? Still in his uniform, because his civilian clothes were gone too, staring at empty space where memories should be. He didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't even blame her. The rage many expected never materialized. Instead, there was something far more devastating: acceptance. He just stared at the field where his sons once played and whispered, "I came home." Those 3 words contained everything: promise, hope, heartbreak, futility. Have you ever heard so much loss concentrated into such a simple statement? Remember that dogwood tree I mentioned? The only thing left standing. On the 3rd night, he carved his son's initials into its bark, not as a claim to what was lost, but as proof that they had existed there, that this had been home once. You might expect this is where he broke, where the weight finally crushed him. But humans are remarkably resilient in ways that will surprise you. What happens when a person has nothing left to lose, but still has life to live? Some say he lives in a trailer now, on the edge of that same land. What's left of it? That he took a job at the lumber yard and refuses to work Sundays because that's when his boys come to visit. Others say he left for good, found work in another state, changed his name, started over where nobody knew to call him hero or veteran or any other title that reminded him of what it cost. Which version do you want to believe? Which feels more like justice to you? The truth probably lies somewhere in between, as it usually does with stories like these, not completely tragic, not remotely just. But those who knew him say one thing for sure: he never fought another war, not with a gun, not with the world, not even with the past. Instead, he did something both simpler and harder. He began again, built something new from the ashes of what was taken, not because he wanted to, but because living was the only option left. Have you ever had to rebuild something you never should have lost in the first place? Then you might understand a fraction of what it took for him to wake up each morning and continue. Remember his wife, the one hospitalized by stress and grief? Here's the resolution I promised. 6 months after his return, they reunited, not in their old home, not with their old life, but as 2 people determined to salvage what mattered most: their family, their love, their future. Sometimes the strongest foundations are built on the ruins of what came before. He didn't lose to war. He survived that. The bullets, the bombs, the nights when fear pressed down like a physical weight. He lost to the silence that waited after, to the systems that forget the people they praise, to the gap between what we say we value and what we actually protect. And the saddest part? He's not the only one. You've walked past people with stories just like his. You've thanked veterans for their service without knowing what that service cost them beyond what was given in combat. Across the country, in small towns and big cities, veterans return to find pieces of their lives missing, not taken by enemies, but eroded by time and circumstance, and the simple, brutal fact that life doesn't pause while you're away. According to recent studies, over 14% of returning service members face housing insecurity within 5 years of discharge. How many people is that? Think about it. That's approximately 1 in 7 of every service member you've ever thanked. Military families are more likely to face foreclosure than civilian ones. And the bureaucratic safety nets designed to prevent these outcomes are riddled with holes large enough for entire lives to fall through. You've heard this story as if it were singular. One man, one loss, one tragedy. But what if I told you this is happening right now, as you're reading these words? What if, right now, another soldier is stepping off another bus, about to discover what was lost while they were saving everyone but themselves? But here's where you come in, where this story could change, because now you know, now you understand. And awareness is always the first step toward change. What if, this time, we decided not to let it happen? What if you decided to be the difference in one veteran's homecoming? I wonder what you'll do with this knowledge tomorrow.